cyber wars, a recession, a government shutdown, war, and many other events have occurred in my lifetime. Every day, when I watch the news, I hear another story pertaining to these hardships of the time. Despite this, however, I still see hope for the future of the United States. Many may ask, how can one see hope among such times? But I do in fact see some. I see it in other stories I hear on the news. I see it in the stories of soldiers returning home after fighting overseas, in the stories of everyday heroes to you and me. I see a nation, despite its problems and hardships, full of pride. There has been a war overseas in the Middle East for most of my life. From a young age, I was told how soldiers left their families to defend a country that is home to friends, family, and complete strangers. Strangers, people that they don't even know, they fight for. This makes them heroes. It saddens me to see the effects of war and the lives lost, but I see hope in every soldier that comes home safe. It is in how these soldiers are welcomed home, however, that makes me optimistic for the future of our nation. On the news, I occasionally hear these stories. Soldiers surprise their families at school, meetings, and any place they can. These soldiers are also honored. I remember as a young girl being in the car while my family was driving to my grandma's house and passing a parade of police cars and motorcycles. On one of the vehicles, I remember it being displayed, "Welcome Home," with a soldier's name. I remember asking my parents what was going on, and they told me that they were honoring the soldier for his dedication and heroism in fighting for our country. I could see the pride on the people's faces as they rode past my parents' car. In another way, I also see the nation's pride in stories I have read in magazines. I read stories of people who pay for a soldier's meal and coffee and their reactions. The reaction by the soldier is usually humbling. They usually say the person does not need to pay, but the person who is paying responds with respectful, "I want to thank you for all you do." So not the only instances of heroes in our nation's pride. It is September 11th, 2001. The whole world seemed to stand still as news of a terrorist attack on the United States is televised. Images of the first responders, police, firemen, and paramedics rushing in flash across the screen. It was a hard hit for the United States. Instead of crumbling, however, the U.S. bonded together and stood strong with pride. Fast forward to the 2012 Olympics in London. The United States is competing. The United States watched together, rooting on the Fab Five, U.S. women's soccer team, and many others to victory. Fast forward to April 15th, 2013. In Boston, a marathon was being run. It was towards the middle of the race, as some of the fastest runners had already crossed the finish line, when a bomb went off, killing and injuring runners and spectators. First responders again rushed in, saving countless lives. The whole nation bonded together and became Boston Strong. Fast forward again to October of 2013, when the national government shut down. War vets traveled to Washington, D.C. to visit their memorials despite the shutdown. The sites were closed. Police on guard, however, let them go and visit out of respect for what they have given to our country. Through these stories and events, one can see the pride Americans have in their country. In times of joy, such as the Olympics, we join together in cheering on our fellow Americans. In times of sadness and tragedy, we come together and stand strong. It is in these moments, good and bad, big and small, and past and present, I see optimistic hope for our nation's future. One final thing that gives me hope for our nation's future is something I personally experienced. It was an experience that happened in an unusual place. I was on vacation in Disney World with my family. We were at the American Adventure in Epcot, waiting to see the show about the United States. While we waited, there were singers in the area dressed in colonial wear. They were singing classic songs. Some people were listening, some were on their phones, and some looked relieved to get out of the Florida heat. Then, right before the doors were set to open, the head singer said they were going to sing their final song. They began to sing the national anthem. I never heard a room so quiet. The whole room seemed to stand still. One by one, everyone stood up from their seats around the room. Some began to sing along, while others stood in silent respect. Neither a phone nor voice was heard other than those of the singers. In that moment, I felt immense pride in my country. In seeing everyone, complete strangers from all over, come together and sing and stand together in honor of our country, gave me hope for our nation's future. It is in the stories previously told, in this experience, I see the hope for our nation's future as a nation joined together. For as the famous quote says, Divided we fall, united we stand.
Living the American dream, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The bigger the risk, the greater the reward. In the 1950s, the neighborhood I currently live in was brand new. Families strove to become homeowners, have good jobs, and live happy lives, otherwise known as the American dream. That feeling is still evident in my neighborhood today. As I walk down my street, the races and cultures have changed quite a bit since the 1950s, but the desire to attain the American dream still remains. My neighbor Ruben was born and raised in Mexico. As a teenager, he came to the United States with his brothers, leaving his parents behind. He and his brothers worked very hard at various jobs to make a living. They worked in areas such as retail, customer service, and fast food. As a young adult, Ruben saved enough money to begin his own business and start a family. Today, he owns a restaurant and is able to provide for his family and his community. Coming to America was a difficult decision for Ruben because he knew that he would succeed and have a better life than if he stayed in Mexico. My next door neighbors have lived in America since the early 1940s. They came from the Middle East and settled in Chicago. They raised 7 children in a 3-bedroom house. All of their children graduated from college and have professional careers. Their oldest son still lives in the same house with his family of 8. He is following the example of his parents by working hard to ensure that his children have even more opportunities than he did. Many of the family members have become either lawyers or teachers. They also give back to their community with their time and talent. Both my grandparents and great-grandparents came to America from Western Europe. They came with very little and struggled to make ends meet. As immigrants, they faced much uncertainty due to the challenges of world wars and the Great Depression. They knew that life would be much better here in the United States than if they stayed in their home countries. They were able to own a produce business, have a home, and provide for the needs of their family, which they might have been impossible had they not come to America. Also, one must take into account that it was harder for immigrants and others to hold and maintain said business during that time period. America has always been a place of great opportunities. Millions of people have chosen to have a better life by coming to America. I feel positive that this will carry on for centuries to come. The future is always uncertain, but as Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, there is nothing to fear but fear itself. Sometimes we must go out of our comfort zones to accomplish our goals, even though we may not know the outcome. My family and neighbors are living proof that hard work is the key to attaining your goals and having a successful life. Their success has given me hope for those in the future. These people are few of the many who are trying to create better lives for themselves and their families. I am hopeful that this legacy of hard work and a desire for a better life will continue for many generations to come.